Menendez brothers, they are back in court tomorrow. DA Nathan Hochman has asked the court to throw out his predecessor, George Gascón's motion for resentencing. So what can we expect? With us now is civil rights and criminal defense attorney Adanté Pointer. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, thanks so much for having me.
So is this the important hearing we have been waiting for the Menendez brothers, whether we find out if they're going to be resentenced, potentially getting them out? Is this the big one, or is this kind of a preface?
This is more of a preface, but it is a pivotal hearing in that the court will decide whether or not the actual resentencing hearing will go forward later this month. So what is actually up for the court to decide is whether or not they're going to allow the current district attorney to withdraw the previous District Attorney Gascón's resentencing memo, essentially a petition where the DA agreed that these brothers should be resentenced. So that's what the court is going to be deciding tomorrow, and we'll all be waiting with bated breath.
Now, a lot of this disagreement over resentencing, what have you, and between the first and the second trials in this case, hinged around the arguments over sexual abuse allegations. Some people saying, well, they didn't bring that up at first, then they did later, and they changed the story a bit. How much is that going to factor into a final decision here, and does that send a message to abuse victims?
I certainly think it's going to be center stage at the top of the court's mind in terms of evaluating whether or not the court will actually resentence them. However, if they're granted a hearing, then I also believe the defendants will also make as much hay as they can around these factors and facts that they brought out in their trial. And as it relates to sexual assault victims or people who are victims of abuse, it's been very well documented that people are hesitant to come forward with that because it's a very polarizing thing. It's very much like a scarlet letter. But on top of that, people repress those memories. And so, yes, they did not bring it out during their first trial, but it did come out during their second trial. And so that means it's fair game for the court to consider.
Now, a lot has been made about Governor Newsom eventually going to have to weigh in or may weigh in on this. Should he, let's say hypothetically, weigh in on this tomorrow and say, I'm going to commute the sentence to time served, therefore they could be released. So that hearing would then get canceled, wouldn't it?
Yeah, if the governor were to weigh in like that. But given this is a lightning rod of a case, very much a politicized case at this point, I would not put any bets that the governor will step in at this point. However, there is a separate parole hearing that is currently scheduled to take place in June of this year, wherein the parole board will listen to the brothers' case and then will send a recommendation to the governor, which the governor could follow or go on his own path and make a different decision. So the governor will have his own opportunity to weigh in on this at later point, in fact, of June of this year.
Civil rights and criminal defense attorney Adanté Pointer, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right.